Thank you everyone for being here this morning. My name is Matt Willmore, and this is my colleague Clarence Helm. We are both from the College of Arts and Letters at the University of Notre Dame. And today we're here to talk to you about a case study of what we did over the last year or so, basically implementing Munki to use in thin builds. Here's the agenda for what we're going to talk about today. First, we'll go over some background information about us, where we come from, and how we arrived at this path. We know that everybody in this room has a unique situation, unique set of customers, unique set of financial and timeline and infrastructure things that they have to consider. And they're all different. So we'll tell you how we arrived where we are and see if that fits with you. But we're going to talk about the problem set itself. What are we starting with? What was broken? We'll talk about our desired state. Where do we want to be? Solution implementation, that's the bulk of this presentation, how we arrived at where we are today. We'll talk about recommendations we have for you as you may decide to go out and do this yourself or do something along these lines. Also some resources we have for you, and then of course we'll have Q&A at the end. If you have any questions in the middle of the presentation, don't hesitate to ask. This isn't anything formal. Just stick your hand up or throw a bottle or something, and we'll take questions whenever.
So that's kind of who we are. I'm Clarence Helm. I have been with the university for about 5 years, but most of that time was spent in application development, scripting, database management. So I'm fairly new. About a year I've spent administering computers. So I worked on a biometrics project there. Yeah, I really enjoyed it, but grant funding kind of dried up for that, so I had to find something else. So I moved into this role. So I kind of played two parts in this, and that's helping out, of course, and learning about it, but also sorry. Also, I kind of was the experiment to an extent as far as knowledge transfer, because that was a big deal for our group, is making sure that we could transfer the knowledge that's necessary to other people, because previously Matt was really the only person with this knowledge, and that's very dangerous in our situation. So,
especially with me. So, like I said, my name is Matt Willmore. I'm an IT support engineer for Arts and Letters at the university. I've been there for 3 years in July, and my education is from Purdue. I know it's funny that I give these talks, and if you want to know where I'm going to be, wait for me to be accepted to present a paper, because I guarantee by the time I present, I'm not going to be doing that anymore. So when I presented at MacIT in 2012 in San Francisco on a previous case study, and by the time I got out of that conference, we were told we had to stop using the tools that I was presenting on. So now I'm presenting on this, and Tuesday when I come back to work, I'm taking a new job at Notre Dame. So whenever I am right for a career transfer, I present on a topic, and then I inevitably won't be working on that in the future. So that's my luck. Yeah. So Clarence is going to go over some background information just about some of the numbers behind what we're working with.
So, as we said, we support part of the university, the College of Arts and Letters. And as far as Macs go, we have about 800 Macs out of 1,800 total computers. Is it? I'm sorry. There's only 6 of us. Is that better? So there's only 6 of us that take care of this 1,800 computers, and previously Matt was really the only.
Super solid. You're there. You can just.
You might be there.
Yeah. So. Yeah, this is how to. This.
Probably not big deal.
Is this mic on? Okay,
yeah.
Let's see. All right, so about 800 of our computers were Macs, and really Matt was the only Mac expert. So we really needed to do something about that because there's really 5 of us supporting about 1,000 computers and 1 person supporting about 800. So Well, that's really the...
How many of us have done?
Yeah. So, most of our... I'm sorry. About 99% of our users are individual users. We don't really support a lot of labs in our group, although there are groups that do support mostly labs. And there's really no standardization as far as hardware. Basically, we make recommendations to our users as to what they should purchase, and we try to keep certain models, but in the end, they get to decide what's best for them. So there's really no standardization at all. So we have to support anything that they want to buy. So, and there's really no bulk buys because our faculty are all on different cycles for purchasing. So whenever they start, they get a new computer from us. They might use other grant funding or whatever to buy however many computers, and they replace them whenever they feel like it, and the university ones are replaced on a cycle of when they started. Not everyone starts at the same time. So we don't have a lot of builds. Like, we don't get 100 builds we have to do at a time. We get a lot of rebuilds and builds that just come in periodically.
Our biggest build season is actually coming up. Mm-hmm. We have incoming faculty who are ordering machines, and we'll do maybe 30 inside of a week, and that's our high time. The rest of it is all one-offs, and we've done 150 in the last year, but they're all a day here, 2 this day, none for a week, and then we got 3, and it's really spread out. So, A&L, Arts and Letters Computing, which is the group we're part of, we like I said, are with Arts and Letters. Each college has very unique needs, so even within Arts and Letters, each department, if you will, has very unique needs, and we find that basically the user's needs are highly dependent on what group they're in. So economics is very different from theology or sociology or whatever. So we have to really try and make a general framework, but then kind of split from it whenever we need to. So they're just very, very different and very unique users. We use a blend of centralized and decentralized technologies. Centralized, we use AD, LDAP, McAfee EPO, Quest, which we'll go into a little more, QMX for authorization, group policies, inventory compliance, some software distribution stuff. Central IT makes an OSX image, but we don't really use it. No. We use the image and process that Matt created. Works better for our users. We just know our users better. I think. Gotta be different, right?
Right. And of course, the centralized OT, they're very slow to create new images. So if we have interstitial builds, we have a problem. I mean, basically, they're not updating it at all. So,
and interstitial is probably the wrong word to use. I was trying to, as we were writing the slides, what word do I use? And I'm talking about when you get new iMacs and they've got 1083, but it's not the same 1083 as everybody else, or it's 1082, or what? It's a custom machine-specific build. That's what I'm talking about when I say interstitial builds. Both. Yes, it's a monolithic image. Well, we're not totally opposed to monolithic images, but we'll show you why.
It was entirely based on monolithic images. So, yeah. So we would wait for a reference release and then basically create a new image. So we used InstaDMG.
Yep.
And updated our image and basically pushed it out that way. The old process was, like he said, he presented on. We still use Munki, but the old process was Matt had a nice Munki server set up. We could distribute software that way. It worked really, really well. For political reasons, that changed. That's it.
So like Clarence said, we were based on monolithic images, and for us, when these interstitial or these machine-specific builds came out, it was extremely uncomfortable for us because the monolithic image that we spent so much time on didn't work. And faculty seem to have this sixth sense when a machine shows up on campus. They just know, hey, is my machine here? And it always happens the day it shows up. It's not even in our building, and they just know it's here. So, and we also want to get those machines in the hands of the users. The warranty clock is ticking. We don't want stuff piled up in our office. We want to get it out the door. But if it's on a build that we can't support with our monolithic image, how do we deal with that? And we had to play guessing game. How soon would Apple come out with a reference release that would fix that, on which I could build a new image? Could I bide my time? is it just one iMac, or does it build that up itself? So I've built the image enough that I know all the steps, and I can do it by hand. It just takes a lot of time. I've got better stuff to do than build Joe User's machine, and then Jane User's machine, and then do all that. So these interstitial releases were very uncomfortable for us.
I'm just picking them up through this log.
So now we're going to talk about the
problem set.
The problem set. We came up with basically a list of things that we've got to fix. The first one, after I went to Mac IT in 2012, we came back and it said, "We know you're using Munki. Stop." And I said, "Why?" They said, "Well, it's not an enterprise supported service. If it breaks, who do we call?" And Notre Dame is very risk averse, and it served them well, but it presented a problem because there was no enterprise Munki. We couldn't pay somebody to be on call like we can for McAfee and Adobe and Microsoft. And you might see that in your organization too, where even though it may not be the best solution, it's a solution on which they have support, in which they can say, "Here, you fix this." And Munki didn't provide that. Interstitial builds, like I said, were an issue. We still had to fix that. They were still coming, and they were coming faster and faster. MacBook Pros, Retina MacBook Pros, iMacs, Minis, all had custom builds. We implemented Quest, which is add-ons for SCCM, but they weren't an imaging tool. They weren't a thin build tool. I tried to use it, and every time I did, Roger, who's the SCCM admin, would call and say, "Stop doing that." I keep having to reboot the server because it's running on a VM slice, and it was just breaking it. So I'm trying to push, 60-some packages down. It doesn't like that. And I was the only guy with the know-how, and I didn't want to do that. I wanted something that would live past me. If I were, as they say, hit by a bus tomorrow, and a new machine's released, what happens? So we have to build beyond just the one guy. And for distributing new images, once I did have a new build, it took a long time to get those out.
Okay, I'll try this. She told me the mic wasn't working, but I think it is. So I think desired state. So we had to stop using Munki, as Matt said, and start using Quest, SCCM, and GPOs for managed desktop. You eliminate the pain associated with the interstitial builds. Basically, like he said, he was building them by hand, so we wanted to eliminate that. Come up with a process to build them much quicker, or at least completely hands-off. Distribute the build knowledge, as he said. I mean, we're lucky we actually went through this because Matt's moving on. And we documented, the heck out of this. And now that he's moving on, we feel like we're in a place where we're comfortable, but we'll probably be calling him still. So, and shorten and eliminate the time to distribute new images. Basically, the way it was working before is Matt would do a build, and distribution would be tough because we had those hard drives, and we still do that to a large extent as far as individual builds. But it just took much longer for him to build them because it was very hands-on, and then the distribution of it was a pain in the butt because we had to get all of the hard drives in one place so everyone had the same image.
Yeah, and the way we split up campus is geographically. So there's the south side where Clarence is now and where I was, and the north side just based on where our users are split. And let's say new iMac comes in with a custom build. Usually we'd send the machines that are destined for the north up there and they build them. And I'd build mine. But they can't build the iMacs because it's on a custom build. So I was having to build all of them. So not only do I not have time for new build or new image, I don't have time to build the ones I have to get out the door now. So you have this huge time issue.
So we needed to construct a build framework that would outlive Matt's time or our time, anyone's time in Alco.
So now we'll get into the solution implementation. We'll talk a little bit about how we implemented each of these items. So we had to stop using Munki for managed desktop. Quest came online in summer of 2012, and we migrated over to that for desktop management. That included things like inventory compliance, software patches through software distribution, using QAS for authentication, and policy applications. So we actually make GPOs in the group policy editor, and we bind the Macs to AD using Quest's own AD plugin, and it applies policy. And we use QMX, which is an SCCM snap-in for things like compliance, inventory, things like that. Some of those we actually had to build ourselves. Quest does not have a built-in compliance tool. So we had to construct that ourselves and have that be an add-on feature, and that was a whole piece of work. So we got Quest up, that's that one solved.
Then, as we've said several times, our big thing was we needed to eliminate the pain associated with that one-off image that came to us, or, Mac that came to us that had a new build, and we needed to be able to build it quickly and get it out and use that as a monolithic image if we wanted to. So we really needed to, that's what we worked on. That's really kind of the heart of it.
We also wanted to work on distributing knowledge. I could come in and do everything because I knew how to do it, but we hadn't been doing a very good job of documenting the process. And if I were to leave or if Clarence was to leave, who does it next? So we made a big effort to document everything on the wiki. And using something like Munki, for those of you familiar, use something like Munki import to pull those packages in. We're even documenting the output from Munki import so you could see exactly how we went through that process. And we over-documented it, if anything. What that provided is, when Clarence goes to add the inevitable Flash Player update or Adobe Reader update or Java update, we can see how we did that in the past. So we can just follow that. Here's the shell and here's the knowledge base article, and we can make sure it ends up the same way, even if you're not that familiar with the process. We put the package info data for each item in Munki, so again, a lot of documentation, and then anything else that helps.
Yeah, and we put like little helpful hints, if you will, for our purposes or whoever. Like when we did Adobe Reader, we automatically delete the plugins because it causes problems for a lot of people. So it opens in preview instead. So it's just part of the package and make it as modular as possible and keep it contained to the package instead of having to write one big script at the end.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you are using Munki? You don't have Munki?
Yes.
Yes.
If I can't use Munki, I might as well use Munki, right?
We're not allowed to use it for distribution of software.
It's not being used for ongoing maintenance anymore. But it proved to be a fantastic tool for this build. Right. Google,
Right.
Google, Disney Animation, those little companies like that.
Yeah.
Right.
So the goal was to just shorten the distribution time, come up with a process to put a build out as quickly as possible. And, with Matt's guidance, I think we came up with a really good process that works really well in our environment.
Yeah.
So.
And create a new framework. I think there's some. Yeah. So of course we use Munki. Can't use Munki, so use Munki.
Maybe in the end, you put such as the wiki that you actually
No, it's a private wiki because we, Adobe serial numbers and all kinds of good stuff in there. All right. So of course we use Munki. So how do we do this? This is why you're here, right? How do we build this thing? We all know why. Now we need to know how to do it. So I came up with this, what we call a thin, thick build workflow. And I say that because in this process I can end up with a machine that's just been built, or I can actually go out and make a monolithic image out of it and go that way. But I can get either destination from the start. So the first thing we had to do is, first thing you need to do as well, figure out everything to be installed. By installed I mean every way you're going to touch this Mac. So your apps, your utilities, any changes any settings you're going to change, anything as big as what's the login window message, what's their mouse scrolling direction. Remember the days when you didn't have to worry about that? It's just, and now you're freaking out because it's battery. Drivers, system utilities, printer drivers, everything you're going to have to do this machine to get it ready to go and hand to a user. What is everything we have to touch?
In the end, so basically, in the end, we figure all this out and we get it into Munki, right? And I had never used Munki before this, and so I can tell anyone who hasn't used Munki before, it's a beautiful tool, and for the most part, you don't have to know a lot. I mean, it's out there. Basically, every package you can think of someone else has probably already imported and has documented. You just have to modify it for your environment. Most packages we found were just drag and drop packages. real simple. And then you have, your standard packages, and there's a list of them there. Adobe CS6. I find all Adobe products to be fun. Basically, the items that need repackaging, and I took a stab at that, and we documented it really well. Had to get advice from Matt several times on how to do that, because I had never done that.
My advice came from Mac Enterprise List and the Munki Dev List and people I knew from conferences. So that's why it's really important to be here.
And the settings and configurations Matt we're talking about are basically our payload-free packages, right?
Yeah, we built a lot of payload-free packages, and I'll talk a little bit about that this afternoon in my packaging talk. But that's very well documented online as well.
And it is important, like they were talking about yesterday, is to keep it as modular as possible. Don't have one giant payload free script that does everything, because then if it breaks, then someone's going to have to go through thousands of lines to try and figure out where to modify something. So keep it as simple as possible.
So payload-free package is a package that does not contain any files to be copied. It only contains scripts. So I can give you a package that you install. It doesn't install anything. It just runs the script. It's a very portable, handy way to do that, and it works well for Munki because I can throw those packages into Munki and it just runs it, and there go my scripts.
And those scripts are telling what software to load?
The scripts are doing various things. In some cases, like I'm unhooking the pre-installed iLife app from the App Store. So if you get a new machine out of the box, it's got GarageBand, iMovie, an iPhoto, but it's missing, of course, iWeb and iDVD. So what we do is we install iLife on top of it. It skips the ones that are installed, but the 3 apps are still tied to the App Store. So there was a discussion on Mac Enterprise last year. They can delete files from within those apps, and then it runs through software update like everything else. So you don't have to be signed in with an Apple ID to update those. So I run that package, and then they're straight apps. And my iLife install, I cut off about 20 minutes of that time because, iLife just takes a while to install. So I use those existing packages. I do things like, there's a quarantine extended attribute from applications. When you download Firefox and you open it up, it says, hey, you downloaded from the internet, are you sure? I can delete that attribute from everything in applications so nothing gets that warning. So users never have to deal with that. So again, there's no data there. It's just a script. But I wrap those up in a package.
Here's the trick that was used before configuration profiles. So you do a lot of system configuration. Here's a package, payload-free package that will set your software.
Yeah.
It's a common way to use it.
Yeah, and profile is another way to approach that. This was something I like because of the portability of packages. I can give the package to anybody, and anybody knows how to install that. So it
works on 10.6.
Yeah, and it's flexible back to OSs. And then we did things like allowing all admins to unlock from screensaver. We have this a lot of times faculty say, hey, go ahead and work on my computer. I'll be in Barbados for a month. Go in their office, and of course they're logged in, screen's locked. Afraid to power down the machine. What if they've got unsaved data? But now we can unlock the screen. We don't tell them that they can do that.
So we ended up with about 70 packages.
Yeah. So what we did in Munki, we basically added everything to a big manifest. It was called 10.8 Bootstrap. And we created another package. It's actually made a package, and it's got a couple things in there. It's got Munki, basically the latest release of Munki. I just took Greg's package and threw it in this package. It's got our Munki preferences, like the URL of the server, what manifest we're using, things like that. It's got a desktop shortcut for manage software update. We call it install ND software, so anybody can sit down and know what to click on. And it's got a command file on the desktop that erases everything, including itself, when I'm done. Because remember, I can't use Munki long term. So I need to get rid of it once I'm done building. So this command file cleans everything up behind me. And there's the script right there. You guys are all going to have the slides. I just want to put that in there. So these are the commands directly from the Munki wiki. So we unload the launch daemons, delete all the files, I delete my stuff, and then it's all cleaned out. So clean up behind myself.
So we didn't use Munki.
Yeah.
We say we're getting all the slides. We're actually
The slides are published.
All the slides will be available to you. Yeah. That's why I put stuff like this in there, because I don't have to worry about you guys trying to type a lot. And this is just to show you how the 10.8 Bootstrap manifest works. One of the things we did is we used these included manifests. So if you know anything about Munki, there's nested manifests. So I have a manifest called Adobe CS6 for 10.8 Bootstrap, 10.8 printers, 10.8 iLife 11. And instead of having to list out all the 27 printer drivers or whatever that I install, I can just say printers, and then it just references that manifest. And then everything that we're going to use, we put in there. And we put enough that people don't ask us, can you install this? We used to get a lot of questions. Hey, can you install Photoshop CS5? Can you install InDesign? I got so tired of that. Plus, the installers would fail half the time. And you're just sitting there. So I just put them in there, and nobody asked me anymore. Nobody asked me for an install anymore. And then the system settings on the bottom, those are all the payload-free packages that we have. So our build scripts, login hooks, boot scripts, unlocking the screensavers, user defaults, admin defaults, changing cups around.
Okay, so basically, our workflow for using Munki to do a thin build, we simply unbox the new Mac, create an admin account, very basic, then install the Bootstrap package. Matt has a nice flash drive plug-in, run. You run the managed software update. The first thing we want to do is basically update everything Mac, right, and then make sure it's as up to date as possible. Reboot as many times as necessary. Basically, we run the build script, we get the info on the end user, right, and we use that info to populate things like what building they're in, where their printers, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, we have a build script that I actually inherited from the guy before me that does an LDAP lookup on the user, and depending on what building they're in, they'll get X printers. Depending on what department they're in, they'll get X printers. And it loads it all for us. We have, in the shell script, there's a huge list of all the printers and what driver it is and what options it has, and it just runs LP-admin over and over and over for that specific person. It populates the printers. And like I was saying earlier, this is where that road diverges. So if it is a thin build, like Clarence said, we'll run the build script, it'll bind, it'll do the printers, we'll save the build report, and then if it's a laptop, we start file vault. If it's going to be a monolithic build, I want to build it. I don't want to customize it at this point. So we just reboot from a boot drive and then capture it. But up until this point, it can be either. So my process for building a monolithic image and building a one-off for a machine I don't have an image for is exactly the same. For both. I'm using it for the interstitial, and let's say there's 10.8.3 comes out. Let's say 10.8.4 will not be a reference build because Apple likes to play with us that way. But let's say 10.8.5 is. 10.8.5 is a reference build. So I update a machine to 10.8.5, or I get a machine that has 10.8.5. I do the exact same process, and I build an image from that. But I can do the exact same thing, whether or not it's going to be monolithic or it's going to be a one-off build for somebody. The process is the same. And what's awesome about this, I don't have to do anything. I install a package, I reboot, I say, go Munki, go, and then 2 hours later it's done. So the time it takes to build a machine is greater than monolithic, but it's not my time. I can turn around and do whatever I want. Then I just look over my shoulder, oh, it's not done yet, I keep working. So my time and Clarence's time is not taken up with this. Yeah.
Can you give more detail on
We have a SMB-based file share for each college on campus. So we call this CorpFS for departmental data. And part of our script just mounts our share within CorpFS, writes all the necessary information, including the key, to a text file, drops that into the right place. The file is named with the person dash model dash date. It drops it in there, then it unmounts it, so it's saved there. And that's the only place on campus we recommend using that, what we call highly sensitive data. Same place we put human subject data and things like that.
You guys do any application testing if you have to do reference build?
We'll typically build one and double-click everything. Does anything break? Does anything not work? We discovered a little bit with that, like with if let's say I'm not doing one from a new machine, but I'm doing one from InstantDMG, I install iLife, which is 9.0, which doesn't work on 10.8. So you got to update it till it's like 9.4.2 or 9.4.3, whatever's the current version. So yeah, we saw that sometimes we had, oh, this is ready to push. Let's go through the application just in case. And we hadn't run Apple software update, and I thought it wouldn't work because it was on a version that was incompatible with 10.8. So yeah, user testing and just clicking through. And we talk about guinea pigs here in a little bit, but having a guinea pig helps. That somebody can try to break it and help you out, but definitely user testing.
Can we arrange a deal where I have Apple ship all my computers to you first and fill them up? And
if Apple can make money on it, I'll bet they would do it. We actually, I think a long time ago, Notre Dame had that where Apple would ship a pre-built or pre-imaged machine, but it was just stupid expensive. We do that with Lenovo right now, where they ship us imaged machines. It's really cut down on the build time. But even with their pre-imaged machines, I'm as fast as they are. I can bring up a new machine, have it built and boxed up inside of a half an hour. So that's with the monolithic. So I don't need it.
Yeah, to be honest, it's considerably faster. Is this mic working now? Because I build both on a regular basis, and even though we get pre-imaged machines from Lenovo, this takes a half hour or less to build, dropping from the monolithic image unboxed to reboxed. And Lenovo takes hours.
When you think about the process to get Lenovo a new image, I can make a new image every month if I want. For them, I think we do it twice a year. Because to get through that process and vet it and have them put it on their disk and... Yeah.
We typically use...
If it's a machine that has 10.7 already, it's going to work with our reference build. So then we back up the data, just wipe it and drop a new image right on top of it, and then put their data back in place.
As long as they don't have a ton of data, it's very quick. Basically, the longest part of doing that is how much data they have to back up in their profile.
Yeah.
So.
The other benefit to doing that image instead of just updating everything is that in our 10.7 image, we're deploying CS5. In our 10.8 image, we're deploying CS6. New versions of FileMaker, new versions of the Quest plugin, new versions of everything. So they would say, well, I'll just update it. I'll just run the update myself. But we changed so much between these major versions that it's really beneficial to just drop a new image on and have it. We know it's all going to work happy together. Yeah. If we have a new machine out of the box, part of the process is to set up what we call our ND admin account. But that's all we do. We just have one admin account. We can. Can't use NetBoot. Networking doesn't like us. So can't use NetBoot. And we use Cisco with zones and clean access. And there's in our campus, networking said there's about 240, 250 subnets on our campus. Microsoft comes out and they go, what are you guys doing? NSA isn't this secure, but you guys have all these layers. There's firewall upon firewall upon firewall. So that's how they like to work. So I can either try to boil the ocean and try to change networking top to bottom, or I can try to work around what I have. I would love to use NetBoot. I wouldn't even put it in my office. I just bring it to the user and say, wait half an hour and you're ready to go. Yeah. Okay. I'll repeat the question. The last question is about, what's the last question? Oh, why are we not using NetBoot? Yeah. Because we cannot. I would love to use NetBoot. So what happens if we don't have new hardware? This is all fine and dandy for the new iMac that ships, but, a user comes in with a 2009 iMac. What do? Well, if I have a monolithic image, I can just use that. But let's say I need to make a new reference build. I don't have any new hardware. I only have new hardware when somebody orders it. And then I only have like a 2-3 day window that I have to do everything, test it, get it out, and then give that person their machine. And never tell them I'm actually using their machine as a guinea pig. So let's say I can pull up a 2009 iMac from our basement. How do I use that to make a monolithic image? Or to thin image it even? So basically boot from an external drive running a Nintendo OS. And this is an InstaDMG requirement. If I want to build a 10.8 image, I need to be running 10.8. And I keep forgetting this. I'll have a 10.6 machine. I'm going to build Lion. Nope. So I got to go find Lion and install it. And then, so be on the OS you want to build. And then I basically use InstaDMG. I download it. There's a Notre Dame allows anybody to download 10.8 from the software download site, which I think is an incredibly bad idea. Because we get a lot of questions. Hey, I self-upgraded. Now nothing boots. I know. But it's a decision they made. So we use InstaDMG. We pull install ESD. And for those of you who have done this before, this is all very, very basic InstaDMG stuff. It creates the image. We restore that image to the Mac. We run software update to get it all patched up. And then we install the Bootstrap package and go on like it's any machine. Yeah. All I'm doing is creating the OS. I'm not adding admin accounts, which I certainly could. I'm just creating the factory OS. Because let's say I have a 2010 iMac, it's not going to ship with 10.8, and I can't use Internet Recovery because it didn't ship from the factory with 10.8. So how do I get a fresh 10.8 on there? And I use InstaDMG for that. How do I start with a fresh OS? I could do that. Once I create this never booted image, I can hang on to that and keep using it. And restoring that image takes about 5 minutes over FireWire. Installing from the installer takes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes? So I can drop it really quick. If I break something, fine, I'll just drop it again. And 5 minutes later, I've got a brand new OS. Yeah.
Well, for example, when you got it, a 10.8 into DMG, you want to stay down with it. Mm-hmm. Is it also giving you, what are you doing with everything?
The recovery partition?
Yeah.
I haven't been able to explain this, but I think it's doing it for me. Because I've wiped, you you erase the drive, you erase the volume, everything, so it's just a barren wasteland. And I'll restore it, and it's there. And I don't know exactly why that's happening. If InstaDMG is doing it for me or what. Or if,
Display Studio.
yeah, Display Studio, I know, but I'm actually capturing and I see that separate image. But I have one file with InstaDMG, and it's restoring 2 partitions. So I don't know if the OS is correcting it or what. But hey, it works. But yeah, if the recovery partition hadn't been there, I would have created it and manually put that in there.
Do you have any dual boot? Can you just Windows and Mac?
No. We do not. We've looked at that. And there are other departments on campus that have requested that. Not that it's our issue, but we're the people who know how to do it. Most of our dual environment is VMs with parallels. And I've wrapped up images with parallels in it with a big image. But it's worked like that. But I haven't done any dual boot yet. If we did, it'd be with WinClone and BootRunner. Okay. So in this user workflow, just some hints for you, some things that we did. We used Mess and Manifest, like I said earlier. So things like Adobe CS6, iLife 11 printer drivers. There's no sense in listing all that out. So I just created a separate manifest for them. Nested them in. We installed a pre-configured manage installs.plist. That's the preference file that Munki uses to determine where the server is, what port, are we using SSL, are we using CERS, what are we doing? Because we know ahead of time what it is, so we'll just drop it into place. One thing we didn't do, and we soon figured out, we need to change the energy settings to not sleep, because Munki running does not inhibit sleep. So what you'll be downloading everything, and you look over, and your Mac is asleep. Crap. I'll wake it up, and it keeps going. It'll pick up where it left off. There's no errors. But if your machine's going to sleep every half hour, and it takes an hour to download everything, you got to keep waking it up. So what you can do, this is a command you can run in the terminal, or put in your Bootstrap package. This is the command to turn off sleep. And we actually have that as a default setting on all our computers on campus anyway, so we just left it like that, but that's what you need. Yeah. whether you are installing or downloading or installing. His question was a clarification on that Munki does not inhibit sleep. And from our experience, Munki does not inhibit sleep at all. So even if you are, you log out and it's running, it's installing without a user logged in, it'll still sleep then. Yeah. Now if I wake it up, it'll just keep going. It doesn't error out, which is awesome. But I don't want it to sleep in the first place. If I leave it overnight, I don't want to come back in the morning. It's only done a half an hour of installs.
So I'm wondering if I should be using something to launch the kick off the process that does inhibit sleep and kill it in one.
You can do that. You can inhibit sleep like that, or have it just do something where it keeps it awake. Or PM set, you got to set it back though, and how do you wrap that around Munki?
Right at the top of the script, bottom of the script.
Yeah, you could do that.
But then you remove Munki. When you kill Munki at the end, reset the PM set is the last thing you do.
Yeah.
It ain't gonna be too long before it draws half battery, so we can use clock.
Right. Yeah. And it's important. Yeah, for our laptops, if they're on battery, they shut off after an hour. If they're on AC, then they stay on.
So basically, to your question earlier, yes, we do test after we do all of the installs, basically through Munki. We do go through everything, make sure everything runs the way it's supposed to, all the software opens, runs the way it's supposed to, and everything turned out the way it was supposed to. And these are just some things that we do, just kind of our checklist, if you will. We just walk through all the apps, make sure if there's any last minute changes. And I think the very last thing we do is we try to make it look like we weren't there, so we delete anything we had to do or create or whatever. Basically, any histories or caches or kind of get rid of all that. Always use the newest hardware you have to do a build. But a new build might come out tomorrow, or you might get a new machine tomorrow that this won't work on, and you'll have to do it all again. But to try and combat that, use the newest machine you have. Test by deploying to a second machine. Just make sure that your image works if you're capturing it and doing monolithic. So, and we do monolithic a lot because of just the way we get computers. Yeah. It only takes 10 minutes to drop the image.
Quick question on terminology. When you're doing the same build, I think I get most of the process with zero step. Are you building on top of the existing OS that ships with that computer? Or
If it's a new computer that ships with an OS, we build on top of it.
Yes.
If it's an older computer that we're building a monolithic image from, then and only then do we use InstantDMG to build up that base OS.
Yes.
We have everything from 10.4 to 10.8 on the field.
And we really try to only support maybe 2 back. And we try to get everyone to update as frequently as possible. And we have a very fast process for updating and transferring data. So, it works.
Getting people to part with their computers, even for a day, is difficult sometimes.
Very.
Herding cats, exactly. There's a lot of cats.
At the point where you're going, say, 10.7 to 10.8, do you take time to 0 before you drop the new user?
Not if it's for the same user. We do that as a security precaution if it's going to a different user. We'll zero it out, but otherwise we don't. And we haven't seen any issues because of not doing that. Yes? Carbon copy cloner. Grab the home directory, home folder, and then we know where to look. Library application support, library fonts, library preferences. We put all the VMs and users shared, so you have to look there just in case. And then apps will typically reinstall instead of copying them over. Because if you ever try to move an Adobe Illustrator installation, you don't. You just start over. It's just more trouble and it's worth it. Yeah.
you say your monolithic build based on what, like, custom hardware, whether, I'm thinking pretty bold about it. You got a lab to upgrade and all.
Yeah.
You always use the packaging on top of the video.
If it's for one-offs, I'll use a monolithic build too because it's still faster. I can still boot from a drive, a 10.8 drive, and I know a 10.8.3 drive is going to work for anything back to what a 1083 supports, and we actually split that drive in half. So we have a 10.7 boot drive that uses the exact same deploy studio repository. So I can drop 10.7 on there if the machine won't boot on 10.8. But for I basically have 4 monolithic builds, and we had a change in our Active Directory OUs where we wanted to be able to give the help desk admin rights to, so if somebody called the help desk, they can get on with Bomgar, which is our remote assistance tool, and install a printer driver, authenticate for something. Our staff don't have admin rights, but our faculty do. Yeah. So we have 2 workflows: 10.8 faculty, 10.8 non-faculty, 10.7 faculty, 10.7 non-faculty. And so where they're bound determines what groups have admin rights. Not at our choice. We would rather they didn't, but it's a how much political capital do you have? Yeah. They probably would. Yeah. I'd have to guess. No, I'm sure there's going to be a 10.8.4 update that will be okay, and then there's going to be a new something. What's due? Errors? Errors are due? So a new error is going to have some funky 10.8.4. That's not going to work. So I've known nothing about what's going to happen, but I'm guessing if history is any indication, we're going to see that again. Now, back to his point about the images, or the labs, the closest thing I have to the lab is we have a copy center. There's 6 of them there, and they all use the same software suite. So in that case, in the interest of time, I did build a new monolithic image. I basically I deployed our standard one, and then added everything they needed. So I've got a 64-bit Windows 7 VM with all the trimmings. They're hooking up to like 12 different printers, so all those drivers, all those printers are pre-installed, and then I wrap all that up and deploy it that way. So and when it makes sense, time-wise I do, but if it's one-off, I won't. We really don't have any labs. Our biggest student lab has 2 computers. It's really all one-offs.
Yeah, for Macs. We do have some larger PC labs, but
yeah,
for Macs we don't really have any. And so this is what we use for our deployment drives. Basically, Deploy Studio is running off each drive, right?
Yeah.
And we use Carbon Copy Cloner a lot. It's much faster, we found, to move data. He updates the drives, actually, typically. And it's pretty quick to update the entire drive, the whole build process and everything on it. We have enough drives. What we have is, I think everyone has a drive and we have 1 extra. Is that correct? So, yeah. So basically he builds the drives, he distributes them. He won't be anymore, of course. But I can tell you with this process, it is very, very quick. It only takes us, how big is the typical image?
The image is 20-some gig. That's CS6, ILI work. Office 2011.
It takes 10 minutes to drop the image and maybe 10 minutes to customize, and you're done. So you've spent 20 minutes on a user machine versus building by hand. So the monolithic image for us, for the most part, has been great because we always have those one-off, or not one-offs, but one computer at a time type of situation. We don't have a lot of computers we have to build at once.
It's an interesting question. So no, they're local accounts on laptops and they're bound accounts on desktops. Quest creates not mobile accounts but network accounts that have local home directories. I'm not sure how they do that, but it's actually classified in system preferences as network, not as mobile. And well, the path is local. It's a local path. We set it, it's a local path and it's set as network. And OS X does not allow network users to unlock a file vault encrypted drive. So if we set them as bound accounts, they'd show up as network and they could not unlock their encrypted laptops. So for that reason, we have to create local accounts. on the laptops. It's not what I would like. And starting in 10.7, we actually started reverting back to bound laptop accounts. But for some strange reason, the faculty who like to complain about having to update their password all the time like the fact that they have a separate laptop password than their Notre Dame password, which is odd. But it's just this user behavior that's ingrained in them. We thought it was supposed to be fixed in 10.8, and it's. I looked around that.
The script was broken because they were actually killing the launch view process when the script ran. If you download the script and ran it, the kill button forced them to the script. Or you can use that.
Gotcha. We'll have to look at that. But, okay. Yeah. I'll have to look at that. Thank you for that. We have recommendations already? Yeah, we're on time. So, what do we recommend? This is based on my 3 years of trying to do this. Look at your resources really closely. You can talk about, oh, Apple makes the students build this and this and this. But you gotta think about your resources, capital time people. Infrastructure training and depth and breadth of knowledge. For only having one person who does this, that wasn't sustainable. It wasn't tenable, so we had to build a new system to fix that. What was nice about this process, this workflow we built, Steve, my colleague, or our colleague, left earlier this month, and my last day is technically Friday. We're still hiring 2 new people. What's nice about this workflow, I can take that new person, sit them down for 20 minutes, and they can be building machines. I can take students, sit them down for 20 minutes, and they're building machines. Suddenly, I've shifted our responsibility to them. And we can do it once over to make sure it looks okay, but now we can spend our time on much more important things than building. It takes more time to understand the background and how Munki works and all that. But what I need to do today is build. And we can push that to students, to new employees, to whoever I want. If we're in a huge panic, we hire somebody on call. 20 minutes later, they're building machines. I'm just limited by the number of drives and jacks. And that's it. So that was big to us. And anybody could walk up and build machines. So, who benefits from this? You need to think about who benefits from this. We're going to go through this big process. Is it just you? Is it all of IT? Is it the department? Is it the faculty? Is it the users? You want to have as big of a benefit pool as possible. What are your needs and your users' needs? So we have complaints like this. I can't give up my computer for that long. I can't do it. My Mac's here on campus, that Spidey sense they have. Why can't I have it yet? So how do I get to them faster? I want to upgrade to whatever's the latest flavor of the day. Is it easy? And you want to say, give it to me, it's super easy. Give it to me, come back tomorrow, and you'll have it done. You want that ease of use. And then complaints that we have. Rebuilds take a whole day. We deal with these on the Windows side too, all the time. You do boot up a Windows image and it's got 200 updates. 3 days later, you're all done. We want to make that as, I don't want to spend my day doing rebuilds. If Apple releases another one-off, I'll take this bat and blah, blah, blah. Yeah. It used to be incredibly frustrating for everybody. And he'd say, please, please, let these have a standard OS. And nope, they don't. And now I'm back in square one. So we wanted to help mitigate that to some degree. And we did feel like we were constantly making new images. We never caught up. And as soon as I did catch up, there's a new one. So if I have to make new images, I might as well make this as easy and painless as possible.
Of course, document. So I've gone through this process really once with Matt, really once thoroughly, and we've been, working on it a little here and there, making sure the documentation's right. But I can't imagine with Matt leaving, going back if we had not documented everything and having to take this over. Not that I'm necessarily taking it over, but I think anyone in our group can go through the documentation. It's kind of nice as the new guy who's never done it to say, wait a second, read his documentation, he reads my documentation, say, wait a second, you're missing a step here, and so it really works well having the new guy and the expert do it, because we really over-documented, like he said, everything we documented. So, It was very, very useful. And then, use the built-in community to add to it. I spent a lot of time, looking on Munki help forums and stuff, trying to learn about it, how to do this, how to do that. And, it's part of IT. You have to do some research. You have to learn. And then stress test your tools. We run through the scripts, dozens of times to make sure everything happens the way it's supposed to. So, yeah, timed exercises, fault analysis, ask honest questions about your limitations. One of the limitations, of course, was Matt was the only one with knowledge, so we have to account for that. So
yeah, another restriction or limitation we have is that since we're doing mostly monolithic images, I want to do it on a fast hard drive. I can't afford it for everyone to have 4 or 5 fast hard drives. So if I only have 1 or 2 per person, I've got to make this as fast as possible, so I can get as many machines done in one day with 1 drive. And what Clarence and I now have are, you have a little different one than I do, but I have a, Western Digital makes a duo drive, so there's two drives in there, RAID 1, so it's mirrored. And like he said, I spend 10 minutes dropping the image. And so let's say it's 20 minutes with your unboxing, boxing, stuff like that. How many machines can I do in a day with 1 drive? That's not bad. I can do 3 an hour times 8 if I got nothing else to do. I'm doing 24 machines a day with a single drive. Add a second drive, a third drive. Maybe that boot's not such a big deal anymore.
And there's probably going to be a question of why we don't do the thin image deployment everywhere, and the answer to that is partially our network is not the greatest for that. We have very old buildings, which our network infrastructure is not all that great. So it really wouldn't work to actually deploy this from anywhere other than offices that are very close to the actual server.
And we tried that. We actually, on that Munki server that we still have, that we use for the Bootstrap, we had a Deploy Studio server running on it too, and we dropped, deploy from the server. Deploy Studio lets you build the flash drive that boots off the network. And it was timing out and just not working, and it'd take like 8 hours to drop the image. And it wasn't feasible. So either we put Deploy Studio servers everywhere, or we just get a hard drive. Yeah.
I was in the president in your process of exploration design among your tools, did you consider doing hard drive to centralized Deploy Studio that just carries scripts or packages? And if so, why?
The one.
To boil it down to one tool.
So you repeat that for the crowd.
The question I had, and what I'm seeing here is.
Oh. Here. Is that wireless one?
No, it wasn't working.
I'm loud enough. The question was. Yeah, it'll pick it up. I'm loud. The question was, when they went into their decision-making process to use Munki as their workflow tool as opposed to thin imaging after the fact, did they consider using Deploy Studio as the whole widget solution, basing it on hard drive bootables and then a centralized set of workflow per machine configuration instead? Centralize one Deploy Studio server on the network to host the payload prepackaging, do the user building, and the out-of-box setup in Deploy Studio rather than doing some of it by hand and some of it with Munki. Was that part of the configuration process? And if so, why didn't they use it?
Well, so why do we go with this route instead of a central Deploy Studio server?
Deploy Studio has this functionality without having to configure it on Munki server.
It does.
Yeah.
In fact, Munki is better than the source.
Right. You should come work for Notre Dame a little bit, and you'll see how confusing it is. Yeah, we're using industrial deployment, and Deploy Studio is now the de facto Mac deployment tool on campus throughout the throughout departments. So to answer your question, again, we have in some buildings, like where Clarence was, poor network throughput. So where do you put that server? If you put it in his poor building, I can't use it. Put it in my building, he can't use it. So we got multiple servers. The other advantage is that we like the flexibility that Munki gave us for things like dependencies and updates. So I can drop Flash player in there, and it just says, okay, you're an update for this and this and this, and it's just done. There's a lot more work to do in Deploy Studio to get that to work. Nested manifest, stuff like that. I know you can do that in nested workflows.
Yeah, but no, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Munki's more geared towards.
Yeah, so we use Deploy Studio, what it is fantastic at, and we hand it out to Munki what it's fantastic at. We clean it all up in the back. We got a good machine. We didn't have to spend that much time touching it. Yeah.
I'm just curious what you recommend when you do get that new error that comes out with some interstitial release, and you do your thin imaging on top of that with Munki. Do you then grab a big image off of that, or what's your process knowing that you're going to have more of these errors coming through? Maybe one of the OS will get hooked on.
That's a good question. So the question was, if I have an error that shows up tomorrow with some weird 10.8.3, and I build it, do I then capture it? Well, to capture it, I have to boot from another drive. And that drive has to have the same build, which is a big part of the problem. And I used to have it where I had a build drive that was split 4 ways with all the different, this is the drive just for the new iMac, this is just for the new MacBook Pro, and that's a mess. And you can't expect the other people in your department to understand that and keep up with that. So in that case, I would probably keep doing the thin builds. And the beautiful thing is that, we can hire somebody tomorrow and they can be building errors with the custom build, and it doesn't matter. And once we get to a reference, then we build again. So I think the idea is that we only build monolithics at reference builds. And for interstitials, we just use Munki all day long.
Okay, so if you've got an error that comes back, then the OS got covered. What do you do?
Because that error has 10.8, I can use internet recovery, put 10.8 back on it, and then go from there. Doesn't work for prior machines, but for that, those will all work with the reference release. So we're sort of covered both ways. You were next.
So outside of the bootstrap, how are you handling your application?
We are handling application deployment primarily through Quest, which does software distribution. Right now they're just using it for basically critical Flash and Java patches, but we can push pretty much anything through it, and it just takes an installer package. It takes a little longer because it's not done through our department, and it's done on a priority basis. It's not what we want, but makes the admins happy. So.
Related to this question, I know it was in your slide, but I'm not quite sure. You didn't want to capture this interstitial 10.8.3 error.
Yeah.
Because what didn't match? What was the limitation there?
Because any drive that how do I capture that image?
But I thought as long as if it was 10.8.3 and you had a 10.8.3, you could do it. Not so because they're
No, because if it's a different build of 10.8.3, I can't.
The assumption is that a new error was released tomorrow.
Yeah,
It comes with a custom build.
I got all that. It's the parts that have to match and what causes that tendency to attack.
If I boot off of my Deploy Studio server, that has to have the same build of
So the
10.8.3.
limitation of Deploy Studio is
No, just the limitation of the OS. If I boot from another drive,
You can't get the boot.
I can't get it to
Yeah,
boot.
doesn't see anything.
So I got to grab that and deploy it to another partition and blah. Not even worth it. Now I could technically hook that drive up over target this mode and capture it this way. But again, teaching somebody to do that and buying Thunderbolt cables for everybody and Thunderbolts and FireWire adapters, just have them install the package and go.
So again, in a different environment, if you have the luxury of NetBoot,
Yeah,
probably then capture it.
I wouldn't be here.
But it's because you have to do that which you need.
Yeah.
That's the limit.
Yeah.
Use Apple Remote Desktop for anything now, or do you just go?
We do use Apple Remote Desktop for what I call point of support. So if you call me, we use ARD a lot for remote control. So I'll say, just let me jump on your screen and I'll help you out. And somebody will call me and say, hey, I need FileMaker. Now FileMaker we have a limited seat license for. We don't have it site license, but we can just install it when somebody asks. So Clarence will say, hey, I need FileMaker. Okay. And I push that installer, and then in 5 minutes he has FileMaker. So we use it for that on one-off pushes, whereas with SCCM it's all based on collections. So all of Arts and Letters is in one big collection. I don't want to push stuff to them that affects everybody. Like Acrobat 11. Or Creative Cloud or whatever is coming down.
Did you have a question, sir?
It's related to your deployment of this, and it sounds like you have to assignment, so you have a single deployment workflow on each partition of the drive.
We have one Deploy Studio repository. I have the same version of Deploy Studio on a 10.8 and a 10.7 boot drive. And then in 10.8, I set up the Deploy Studio server to point to its local repository. And in 10.7, I have it configured to point to the 10.8 repository. It's the exact same repository, the software's the same, it doesn't care. But it allows me to have my 10.7 boot drive be only like 20 gig or so. And when I update one workflow, the other one's updated automatically. So I don't have to duplicate any efforts or data. And then when I have a new drive for people, I basically have it so I have one extra drive and I trade them. So Clarence wants his drive updated. I have two up-to-date drives and I just say, here's a new one. Then I have a new and an old. I clone that one and then I trade next time, new and old. And what happened before, and this is really user behavior on my part, somebody would bring me drives to update. In like a couple months, I'd give them new drives. Because hey, I was able to build. So that was user behavior on my part. So implemented something where you actually trade one off. That may be in a slide. Maybe not. Here's some resources we use along the way. So Mac Enterprise and the mailing list. I know they talked about it today or yesterday, but it's extremely important. Get on that list and just read. Just read for a couple months. And it's really, really interesting stuff. And extremely smart people are on there talking about how they address these real problems. AFP 548, IRC, the OS 10 server channel, also very good. And if you want to talk to a lot of the people that you're seeing at the conference, they're on there. The Create OS 10 Install package is by Greg Nagel and allows you to very easily wrap up an OS 10 install to push back out. I use InstaDMG instead, but there's different ways to do that, and a lot of people like that. Let's see here. InstaDMG, which I talked about, that's the tool we use to build a never booted image. Munki and Deploy Studio. And there's, of course, forums and discussion groups that are very, very good. At Mac IT 2010, there were talks on Munki and Simian, Deploy Studio, and OS 10. I was there, and they were fantastic talks. So go to that link there on Mac Enterprise and watch those. Even though they're years old, it's still good and still relevant. And then all the talks this week. Don't skip out and go back to the hotel. Go to the talks. They're really good. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Yeah, so the question was about InstaDMG. What we're using it for is a factory booted image. So are you familiar with how InstaDMG works? Okay, so for those of you who are not, InstaDMG basically creates a sparse disk image, and a sparse image just means that it grows over time. So I have a 100 meg file, and then I put a gig of stuff in there, and now it's a gig. But it's only as big as it needs to be. And then it mounts the OS 10 install media and installs it onto that drive. Puts everything you want in there, and then you restore that to a machine, you boot it up, and it's the exact same image as would ship from Apple on a brand new machine. That's what they're putting on there, although theirs has iLife bundled in there. So I'm using that for my base image. Now, could I put Office and iLife and CS6 and stuff like that in there? Sure. The problem is that I lose the flexibility like I talked about earlier with Munki, where we're at what, Office 2011 14.3.4? 14.3.6 is going to come out. I don't want to have to go through InstaDMG, which can take a couple hours on its own to build an image and do that again. So anybody can add that to Munki, and then the next time you run that thin build, it's there. So the amount of time, again, that resource that I need to do it, I just use InstaDMG to get that fresh image where I don't already have one or can't get it from Internet Recovery. It's never booted, and Carbon Copy Cloner doesn't create that raw image. It'll do some nice stuff, but it doesn't have the same use as InstaDMG. I can clone an image, but I'm cloning an existing one that's already been set up, and so I use InstaDMG for that. Carbon copy cloner and target disk mode, I can use that, but I have to have that source image. And if I'm on a 2010 iMac and I want a 10.8 source, I can't get that if I don't have it. So I use InstaDMG, create that image, and then from there, it's off to the races. I can do whatever I want. You know? Yes. Yes, the question was to answer your question, yes. When I have a machine that's not, if I need to make a monolithic image, or need to start from scratch on a machine that's not brand new, I'll use InstaDMG and make that base 10.8 image. I'll restore that to a computer, boot from that, and then go from there like it's a brand new machine. If it's a new machine, I'll just install the Munki package and go from there. InstaDMG just addresses the situations where it's not a brand new machine. How do I get around that? If it didn't ship with 10.8, Apple's not going to let me download the 10.8 installer unless I've bought it.
Workflow using InstaDMG, Munki, where's Deploy Studio?
Deploy Studio is a tool that I use to drop the monolithic image onto the machine. And I have a workflow that drops the image. It runs the Adobe CS6 serialization scripts to reserialize the CS6 apps. It names the machine. It actually asks me before I start the deployment, what should I call the machine? And we have a naming convention based on the net ID and the machine. And of course, we're stuck by 80, so it has to be unique within 15 characters, which is very 2013, right? And then we name that, and it does all that. It asks for the name, it sets the name, it serializes it, and it reboots it into the OS. So again, I just hit go, and 10 minutes later I hear it boot. Ta-da! It's nice.
On your non-monolithic images, you avoid the initial, 10, 15 screens of stay at silent and use it for the long.
You can actually script it so as a launch daemon, when you log in, a launch daemon, let's say for the admin user, it automatically triggers Munki in the background and starts. So I don't have to manually double click and say go. I could do that. Go ahead.
It's a typically install with a reference machine when the model comes out. We just looking it up.
A lot of it's just looking it up. And again, that's where the communities come into effect. They can tell you really easily. And Greg Nagel's posted on, you can look within an OS and see what machines it supports. And for a machine-specific build, there'll be like one hardware identifier, like iMac 11.1. But for these reference ones, you'll see this huge list of all the... And that's what happens when you boot. It's looking at that list versus what the firmware says, and if there's no match, that's where you get the X, and you can't boot. But I've always used if you follow the community, they'll say, hey, there's a reference build. And I go, okay, it's a reference build. I just use it that way. I don't think Apple's ever said, this is the reference build. But they do have a knowledge base article that lists all the machines and the builds that they ship with, so you can use that as a reference point. Other questions? Got a couple.
Like all your model images are model specific. Model macro specific.
We don't do monolithics for model specific. The only monolithics we have today are for 10.8.3 and 10.7.5. We have a 10.6.8 just in case. But we just have 2 monolithic images, and it satisfies everybody. Right now, it satisfies everybody on campus. Only when a new machine comes out and there's a machine-specific build does this really get very, very handy. But when that happens, we're set.
How do you know if you need
Yeah, you'll figure it out.
There's an Apple knowledge base article that talks about builds that ship with machines.
Yeah.
Pretty much when the machine is released after let's the universal build, like saying, any questions is this universal yes or no? And Greg Daigle answered it as well.
But he had to go dig it out of the OS.
Yeah, he is posted how you can dig it out of the OS, what force, platform. Generally, again, when a new machine is released after, that's going to have that build with entire dependency. You can verify that using that knowledge base. Then when the next update comes up, you can actually check to see does this actually destroy things like Mackie. Somebody will post, yes, this is universal.
Yep. All right, we're out of time. Thank you, everybody.